The studio lights blaze with their usual intensity, bathing the set in polished brightness that feels both welcoming and unforgiving. The familiar table gleams, papers stacked neatly in front of each host, coffee mugs positioned just so. This is a space built for rhythm, for quick exchanges, sharp interruptions, and the controlled chaos of televised debate. Tulsi Gabbard sits among it all with an almost disarming stillness, her posture relaxed, hands folded lightly in front of her, expression open but unreadable. The introductions are cordial. Applause rolls through the audience as her name is announced, and she nods in acknowledgement, offering a small, respectful smile. The hosts thank her for being there, remark on her background, her military service, her unconventional political path. Tulsi responds briefly, politely, without embellishment. She doesn't try to charm the room. She doesn't try to preempt what's coming. The first questions are safe enough. Why she left her party. What independence means to her. Whether it's lonely to stand outside the mainstream. Tulsi answers calmly, choosing words that are precise rather than catchy. She speaks of principles, of accountability, of the importance of questioning power no matter who holds it. The audience listens, engaged but quiet. Then the tone shifts. One of the hosts leans forward, voice tightening, a practiced seriousness settling in. The question stretches longer than necessary, winding through references to controversial appearances, to figures Tulsi has criticized and defended at different times. The implication is clear even before it's stated, that her willingness to speak across ideological lines is suspicious, maybe even dangerous. Don't you think, the host concludes, that by doing that, you legitimize the wrong voices? A few heads around the table nod. This is familiar territory. The audience murmurs softly, sensing the change. Tulsi doesn't respond immediately. She waits, allowing the question to fully land, allowing the silence to stretch just long enough to feel intentional. When she speaks, her voice is even, unhurried. I don't decide what's right or wrong based on who agrees with me, she says. I decide based on facts and principles. There's a beat of quiet that wasn't planned for. She continues, gently, before anyone can cut in. If we start judging ideas solely by association, we stop thinking critically. And that's dangerous, no matter which side does it. A host tries to interrupt, but Tulsi pauses mid-sentence, looks toward her with a calm smile, and waits. The interruption falters, unfinished. Tulsi resumes, picking up exactly where she left off, as if the break never happened. Another host jumps in, sharper now. But you must understand how that looks, she says. At a time when misinformation is everywhere, don't you have a responsibility to be more careful? Tulsi nods, acknowledging the concern. I agree that misinformation is a serious problem, she says. Which is exactly why we shouldn't discourage people from asking hard questions. She leans slightly forward, still composed. Blind trust isn't the same as informed trust. The audience murmurs again, louder this time. A third host presses harder, frustration creeping into her tone. You keep criticizing institutions that most people rely on. Isn't that just fueling cynicism? Tulsi doesn't bristle. I think cynicism grows when institutions refuse accountability, she replies. Not when people ask them to earn trust. The contrast becomes visible now. The hosts speak faster, more urgently. Tulsi speaks slowly, deliberately. Each interruption aimed at rattling her seems to dissolve the moment she pauses and waits it out. So what? One host asks. You think you know better than everyone else. Tulsi tilts her head slightly, thoughtful. No, she says. I think the American people deserve leaders who explain their decisions instead of demanding loyalty. The audience breaks into applause before it can be checked. One host lifts a hand, trying to regain control, but the rhythm has shifted. Another question comes, framed more aggressively. Why does she criticize foreign policy consensus? Why does she oppose interventions others call necessary? Isn't that naive? Tulsi listens fully, eyes focused, not defensive. I've seen the cost of those decisions firsthand, she says quietly. They're not abstract to me. The room stills. Her voice hasn't changed, but the weight behind it is unmistakable. She continues, questioning endless war isn't naive. It's responsible. A host scoffs lightly, trying to undercut the moment. That sounds nice, but the world isn't that simple. Tulsi nods. I agree. Which is why we shouldn't reduce complex decisions to slogans like, necessary, without examining who pays the price. Someone tries to interject. Tulsi stops, waits again, hands still folded, gaze steady. The interruption fades. Who is we? A host asks sharply. You keep saying, we. Tulsi meets her eyes. The people who fund these decisions. The people who fight them. And the people who live with the consequences. The answer is delivered without accusation, but it lands cleanly. The audience applauds openly now. The hosts exchange glances, recalibrating. Another tries a different tack, suggesting Tulsi's independence is performative, a way to avoid accountability. Tulsi smiles faintly. Independence doesn't mean avoiding accountability, she says. It means not outsourcing my thinking. The energy at the table tightens. Questions come faster, overlapping. Tulsi never raises her voice. Each time she's interrupted, she pauses, allowing the contrast to speak for itself. Calm against urgency. Precision against generalities. Don't you see how dangerous that can be? A host asks, exasperation slipping through. Tulsi nods again. I see how dangerous it is when power goes unquestioned. The audience reacts sharply, applause, gasps, a low buzz of surprise. The host opens her mouth to respond, but the words don't come quickly enough. Time is running. The producer signals from off-camera. The segment needs to move on. Tulsi sits back slightly, expression unchanged, as if the intensity never touched her. She hasn't accused anyone personally. She hasn't raised her voice. Yet the familiar rhythm of the show feels disrupted, slowed, unsettled. As the host thanks her and moves to wrap the segment, Tulsi returns the courtesy sincerely. Thank you for the conversation, she says. The applause that follows is louder than expected. When the camera cuts away, the table feels different, less certain, less in control. Tulsi remains seated for a moment, composed, waiting for direction. Around her, the hosts adjust their notes, their expressions tighter now. Nothing explosive has happened. No one has been shouted down. And yet, the exchange lingers heavily in the air, a quiet unraveling of assumptions, delivered not with force, but with calm precision that refused to bend to the show's usual speed. When the show returns from commercial, the atmosphere has subtly but unmistakably changed. The music fades out a fraction too early, the applause sounds less automatic, more uncertain. The hosts smile, but the smiles don't fully reach their eyes. Tulsi Gabbard sits exactly as she did before, upright, relaxed, hands resting calmly on the table, as if nothing at all has shifted. That, somehow, makes the shift feel even larger. One of the hosts clears her throat and thanks the audience for staying with them, her tone brighter than the room feels. She pivots back to Tulsi with a careful, measured expression, as though every word has now been weighed twice before being spoken. Let's talk about tone, she says. Because some people might say the way you speak, so calm, so controlled, can come across as calculated. There it is, a new angle. The implication hangs in the air, that calm itself is a tactic, not a temperament. Tulsi considers this without reacting. She doesn't rush to defend herself. When she speaks, her voice is as steady as before. I think calm makes people uncomfortable, she says. Because it doesn't give them anything obvious to push against. A few audience members nod instinctively. One host shifts in her seat. Another jumps in quickly, seizing the opening. But don't you think passion matters? People are angry. They're scared. Isn't calm sometimes just another form of detachment? Tulsi turns slightly toward her, attentive. I think passion matters deeply, she replies. But passion doesn't have to mean chaos. And caring doesn't require shouting. She pauses, then adds, in fact, I think the people who are most affected by bad decisions often wish the people making them would slow down. The audience murmurs again, a low wave of agreement rippling through the seats. A host interjects, sharper now. But you're sitting here criticizing systems while benefiting from the platform they give you. Isn't that hypocritical? Tulsi nods slowly, acknowledging the question rather than rejecting it. I don't believe participation requires silence, she says. If anything, access creates responsibility. The words land softly but firmly. The hosts attempt to regain momentum, asking questions more quickly now, as if speed might restore control. One suggests that Tulsi's approach lends credibility to harmful ideas simply by engaging with them. Another implies that refusing to draw hard lines enables extremism. Tulsi listens to each question fully. She doesn't interrupt. She doesn't sigh or roll her eyes. When she responds, she speaks with careful clarity. Bad ideas don't disappear when you refuse to acknowledge them, she says. They grow in places where they're never challenged. She folds her hands together. Sunlight isn't endorsement, it's examination. The applause this time is louder, less restrained. One host raises her hand, trying to quiet the crowd, but the energy has slipped beyond easy management. A final attempt comes from the far end of the table. The host's voice is firm, edged with frustration. So you're saying everyone else here, journalists, institutions, experts, are just wrong? Tulsi turns to her, expression neutral, not defensive. No, she says, I'm saying no one should be above question. The simplicity of the answer seems to catch the table off guard. She continues, calmly. The moment questioning becomes offensive is the moment accountability disappears. The host opens her mouth to reply, then hesitates. The producer's signal flashes again. Time is nearly up. There's a brief, awkward pause, an unusual thing for a show built on constant motion. In that pause, the contrast is unmistakable, the format pushing forward, the guest unmoved by its urgency.